Hello, dear colleagues. Sergey Petoukhoff talk biophotonics, genetics, and the evolutionary role of bio-antenna arrays. Dualism, probability versus determinism in genetics. Genetics as a science began with Mendel's discovery of stochastic rules of inheritance of traits in experiments on the crossing of organisms. Many processes in living bodies are of stochastic nature. The well-known expression gene noise reflects the fact that even genetically identical cells within the same tissue exhibit different levels of protein expression, different sizes and structures due to the stochastic nature of interactions of individual molecules in cells. The stochastic nature of genetic processes in the small does not interfere with the inheritance of the traits determined in the big, so-called Gestalt phenomena. For example, finger springs are different for all people, although fingers in the whole have a typical shape and composition, 3 phalanges, etc. According to Mendel's law of independent inheritance of traits, information from the level of DNA molecules dictates the macrostructure of living bodies through many independent channels, despite strong noises. Thus, hair, eye, and skin colors are inherited independently of each other. Accordingly, each organism is a machine of multi-channel noise immunity encoding. The stochastic nature, all physiological systems are genetically inherited through their genetic coding. Therefore, one should look for the origins of this inherited Gestalt phenomena of physiology in the genetic system of DNA informatics. In the course of such searches, the speaker discovered that already in the information system of DNA molecules of the genomes of higher and lower organisms, universal Gestalt phenomena of their stochastic organization are embedded. Let us explain this. Genetic information on DNA molecules is written in the sequence of formal nucleotides, adenine A, guanine G, cytosine C, and thymine T. DNA also contains alphabets of 16 duplets, 64 triplets, 256 tetraplets, etc. All these interrelated alphabets are represented in matrix form as members of a single tensor family of matrices, C, A, T, G in n tensor power. We use these matrices in studying the stochastic organization of genomic DNAs. For example, let's turn to the DNA of the first human chromosome, which contain a sequence of about 250 million nucleotides. Calculating in this DNA the percentages of each member of the DNA alphabet of 4 nucleotides, we obtain the following tables of their probabilities. See slide. After this, we represent the same DNA as a text of 2-letter words such as CA, TT, GA, based on the alphabet of 16 duplets, and calculate a table of percentages of 16 types of duplets. See slide. Similarly, presenting the same DNA as a text of 3-letter words, and then as a text of four-letter words, etc., we obtain the corresponding tables of percentages of 64 triplets, 256 tetraplets, etc., etc. At first glance, the resulting sets of percentages of N-plates in these N-plates DNA texts are quite chaotic. But in these seeming chaos, there are many universal rules for N-plate groupings that are valid for all studied genomes. Special N-plate groupings in matrices of probabilities for different N-texts of the genomic DNA are numerically interrelated. See details in the published PETOUKHOV articles. The same rules of stochastic organization of genomic DNAs holds for all already analyzed DNA sequences. Firstly, all 24 human chromosomes, all chromosomes of Drosophila, mouse, worm, many plants, 19 genomes of bacteria and archaea, many extremophiles living in extreme conditions. For example, radiation with a level 1,000 times higher than fatal for humans. These universal rules in genomic DNAs indicate the existence of non-trivial algebraic invariants of a globally genomic nature, which remain unchanged over million years of biological evolution, during which millions of species of organisms die off and new ones appear, although locally genomic sequences are modified by mutations, natural selection mechanisms, etc. This seems to be connected with the question of the origin of life, since these patterns are presented also in archaea and bacteria. The speaker revealed that the described matrices of probabilities of N-plates from N-texts of any considered genomic DNA are interrelated by special matrix tensor equations using the Hadamard product of matrices. For example, the genomic DNAs, the 2 and 2 matrix of 4 monoplates probabilities is interrelated with the 4 and 4 matrix of 16 duplets probabilities by the equations with additional 2 and 2 matrices BC, BA, BT, BC. See slide. Similarly, algebraic interrelations between the 4 and 4 matrix of 16 duplets probabilities and the 8 and 8 matrix of 64 triplets probabilities are expressed by the equation, see slide, see special preprints. Analogies with tensor matrix theory of digital antenna arrays. The described matrix tensor connections between the probability matrices of genomic DNAs are analogical to formalisms of the well-known tensor matrix theory of digital antenna arrays. The theory using the Hadamard products was developed by Ukrainian professor Slusar. It gives very advantageous possibilities in the field of many component digital antenna arrays, also called smart antennas. It was this analogy initially led the speaker to the doctrine of energy information evolution based on bio-antenna arrays. Antenna arrays have 1,000 applications: medical ultrasound scanning technology, sonar system, radio relay stations, radio astronomic devices, avionics, and many others. Modern science connects with antenna arrays future revolutionary changes in computers and energetics due to using non-antenna arrays, which can include photonic crystals, liquid crystals, etc. Antenna arrays consist of many separate antennas, each of which can emit or absorb waves of a specific frequency range. Emerging properties of antenna arrays. Antenna arrays provide such kinds of radiation patterns which are unable for a single antenna element. Let's list the main emergent properties of antenna arrays. Firstly, in a comparison with a single antenna, an array of n elements allows to increase approximately n times the directivity and the gain of the antenna, as well as allows to narrow beams. Antenna arrays are a unique tool for providing communication noise immunity and extracting a weak signal from a strong noise. Thirdly, phased antenna arrays capable of operating with multi-beam radiation patterns. Given these unique emergent properties of antenna array, it can be expected that organisms are forced to use them in their life activity. The presented doctrine confirms this expectation on a set of examples of the structure and functioning of inherited physiological systems based on antenna arrays and their energy waves. Let's show some examples of such inherited systems. Considering these examples, one should remember that electrical and vibromechanical oscillations in living bodies are closely connected because many tissues are piezoelectrical. Nucleic acids, actin, dentin, tendons, bones, etc. First example, complex faceted eyes. Insects and some other invertebrates receive visual information through complex faceted eyes, which serve as bio-antenna arrays for receiving electromagnetic waves. Inherited phenomena of biological echolocation. Many organisms have an innate ability to echolocation based on directed rays of a wave nature. Due to the mechanisms of echolocation, for example, dolphins and bats are able to recognize the distance, dimensions, and shape of the objects they track, by analogy with how active smart antennas make it possible in technology. A dolphin's body has many hydroacoustic receptors, which form a multi-element broadband hydroacoustic receiving antenna. Electrolocation is also widespread with the generation and reception of electric fields for solving by organisms many vital tasks of a search, evaluation, and communication nature. In the act of electrolocation, the animal senses its surrounding environment by generating electric fields and detecting distortions in these fields using electroreceptor organs. These organs are distributed through the body, forming bio-antenna arrays, the cumulative readings of which are processed by the body. The figure shows the arrangement of electromagnetic field receptors in red on the shark shark's head forms a receiving bio-antenna array. Inherited sets of biophoton crystals. Photonic crystals form heritable spacious patterns on butterfly wings and peacock features. Numerous wing scales are shown, which are photonic crystals. Modern technologies actively use photonic crystals to control the spatial distribution of photon beams. A photonic crystal is a periodic optical nanostructure that affects the motion of photons. It is known that photonic crystals are related to the topic of nano-antenna arrays. Inherited systems of liquid crystals, DNA and RNA, some proteins, membranes, and cytoskeleton of cells are liquid crystals, which can also form nano-bioantenna arrays. Of particular interest for biological research are liquid crystals called chiral faces or twisted nematics. Now, antenna arrays and regeneration phenomena. It is natural to believe that the electromagnetic activity of bio nano-antenna arrays is involved, in particular, in the distribution of rest potentials on cell membranes, which are liquid crystals. This factor of rest potentials are important for morphogenetic processes and the regeneration, as it was shown in impressive experimental works by Michael Levin and his colleagues at Tufts University. These works were carried out on flatworms, planarians, which have a head, a true brain, etc. Planarians are known champions in organs and tissue regeneration. The noted works studied regeneration of amputation parts of worm's body and showed the determination of the correct position of the organ in the worm's body is controlled by the distribution of membrane potentials in not yet differentiated cells. Artificial changing by ionophores, the typical distribution of the membrane potentials on an amputated fragment of the worm's body leads to the formation of planarians with two heads. One should note that such artificial influence on liquid crystal membranes can significantly change cell systems of liquid crystals by antenna arrays participating in morphogenetic processes. It is especially remarkable that if both heads are cut off from the resulting two-headed worms, then a two-headed worm is again regenerated from the remaining middle fragment. And this procedure can be repeated many times, each time receiving the regeneration of a two-headed worm. According to Levin, this means that the memory of the correct structure of the body, which should be formed after regeneration, turns out to be radically changed, although the genome of this organism did not change and remained the same. Therefore, the memory that tells the worm about how many heads it should have is contained not in the genome at all. These experimental facts have led Levin to the important idea that emerging properties of an ensemble of cells are key participants of morphological, and some other processes. Multicellular ensembles are able to determine the type of morphological patterns formed, largely independently of the information in DNA. This idea generated new experiments in which Levin showed that the combination of cells from the skin of a frog into a single ensemble leads to the appearance of a teeny body of a completely new design. Such bodies, which are biological robots called xenobots, can move, navigate a labyrinth, explore the environments, feed and heal themselves, although they don't have a nervous system, don't have a brain, and they are simply collection of skin cells which unchanged DNAs. And so Levin put forward concept that the electrical blueprints orchestrate life. Our doctrine of evolution based on bi-antenna arrays proposes another basis point of view. This doctrine states that just bi-antenna arrays with their coordinated electromagnetic waves orchestrate life. This doctrine draws attention to important factors of electromagnetic waves, which are absent in the concept of the electric blueprints. Firstly, electromagnetic waves of bi-antenna arrays are involved in the operational transfer and redistribution of energy between the elements of the body. Secondly, for connections between parts of each body, electromagnetic waves provide participation of magnetic and piezo vibration components besides electrical potentials. Thirdly, the types of polarization of electromagnetic waves are important for relationship between the elements of the bodies, since they are associated with the fundamental problem of biological dissymmetry and molecular chirality noted by Louis Pasteur. And memory and intellectual abilities are connected with bi-antenna arrays and their wave-coordinated ability. Fifth, the unique ability of antenna arrays to provide noise-resistant multi-channel operation with the extraction of weak signals against the background of strong noise allows us to rethink the phenomenal ability of organisms to work with many parallel channels with weak information signals against the background of strong noise, with providing information noise immunity. Concerning the role of bi-antenna arrays in energy flows in bodies, one can add that the idea of the organizing role of coordinated energy flows inside the body exists since ancient times. It is associated with ancient Chinese ideas about a certain energy G or Qi, whose circulation defines human health and illnesses, and which determines the existence of energy pathways called acupuncture meridians. By the impact of acupuncture needles on these meridians, these energy flows can be corrected. It cannot be ruled out that this mysterious energy G is connected with the energy of a multitude of coordinated electromagnetic and other wave rays from bi-antenna arrays. And the genetic code and bi-antenna arrays now. They described tensor matrix analogies between structures of stochastic organization of genomes and smart antennas allow believing that the genetic code itself is one of the offsprings of wave activity and self-organization of bi-antenna arrays. And this code is connected with other inherited physiological offsprings of bi-antenna arrays. The secret of the structural organization and origin of the genetic code, as well as the origin of organisms, must be sought not in the random combination of the molecular elements of the genetic code, but in the emergent properties of self-organizing systems of bi-antenna arrays with their wave energy activity. Accordingly, it is not genes that are dictators of all life activity, since they themselves are built into the energy information coherencies of bioantenna arrays and are produced by them. Conclusions. Firstly, taking into account the amazing emerging properties of antenna arrays and the analysis of genetic and inherited physiological systems opens up deep analogies between biological and technical systems operating on the principles of antenna radiation and reception of electromagnetic and other waves. Secondly, this leads to the mutual enrichments of these areas of knowledge and also provides a new approach to the problems of evolutionary biology from a unifying content points of view. Thirdly, one of these analogies is the algebraic relationship between the matrix theory, tensor theory of digital antenna arrays and matrix tensor analysis in genetics, which revealed the universal rules for the stochastic organization of DNA information sequences in higher and lower organisms. This talk presents only fragments of our works in algebraic biology. Many other materials are available for free access on the speaker's website. Many details of this talk are in the preprints. Slide. Thank you very much for your attention.